Hi, I'm John of John's Carnivorous Plants, and this is my indoor nursery. Today, I'm going to tackle the question of why are carnivorous plants so expensive? Well, it's a complex situation going on here, and I hope to, as a nursery owner, give you some insight into what's actually going on. Supply and demand is generally the biggest force and factor in how these plants get priced. Generally speaking, if not many people want them, the price ends up going very low. However, there is a floor on how low the price will go for most of these plants because people need to make money for their time and efforts. And generally speaking, if it's below minimum wage, they won't do it. So, what you'll see is that a lot of the more fringe plants tend to have a lower availability, but also tend to be pretty cheap just because they're not very in demand and people tend not to really want them. There is another class of like fringe plant where, like, for example, tuberous drosera, where it's people have a slight interest in them. They're known to be difficult to grow, so it's not a very large market, but you end up finding just it's mainly operated by collectors who have been growing the plants for years and slowly distributing and trading amongst themselves. So because of that, supply and demand definitely plays a big role. Now, moving on to the next point, most carnivorous plant nurseries are incredibly specialized. And what I mean by that is, like me, I only offer carnivorous plants. Other nurseries will have a few houseplants here or there, but generally speaking, the bread and butter business of a carnivorous plant nursery is the carnivorous plants. So, with that in mind, we have to basically make the same amount of money a regular nursery would with all of their much, generally speaking, wider selection of stock than we have on, a lower like variety of plants. So we have to generally sell a good amount of them and make it good enough to where you can, in some cases have staff, have big greenhouses and all these other things which cost lots of money. It's kind of one of those things that people don't understand, and I'm gonna make a future video about the cost of like growing carnivorous plants because it definitely does exist and it's very expensive. Now, the other aspect that you're starting to pay for though is the skill of a grower. So, for example, like me here, because of all of these different genera that I grow, I generally speaking will slowly over time start raising the price little by little, especially as demand, hopefully this YouTube channel, explodes. And as that goes up and I have a larger customer base, you're going to see my pricing go up, especially if my spacing in like my grow area is not increasing in space as well. It's just supply and demand. But also you're paying for my skill level as well. As I demonstrate more and more to the market, and like these other nurseries have, some of them, been running for decades, they've shown that they consistently can produce good carnivorous plants at a great quality, great price, and can sustain the market. That's something that you're paying for, as opposed to if like you went on a Facebook group and you're buying from Joe Schmo that you have no idea of or there's no track record or reviews of. It's probably not going to be the better customer service experience or better quality plant. And because of that, you're paying a little bit extra from these nurseries. With that in mind, there's one last component that I know a lot of people overlook. If you're trying to find a highland plant, it is naturally going to be much more expensive. And I mean that. You're going to be paying for cooling, heating, etc. to keep those plants at a very stable temperature throughout the year. And those setups cost a lot of money, especially whenever people try to scale them up, they get even more expensive. So because of that, I need you to keep in mind, if you're trying to get highland plants, you're paying for not only the grower skill, the supply and demand issue, but also the incredibly increased price of the setups involved. So yeah, there might be a sunk cost fallacy that some of these owners are passing off to people where they spent 32 grand on a big giant like freezer setup or something like that, or a fridge setup to where they could grow plants as like highland plants industrially, well, commercially, I should say. And they have all of these plants and suddenly they need to make that money back off of all that setup. On top of all of the cost of electricity, any kind of maintenance, etc., it adds up very quickly to many, many thousands of dollars. And that gets passed on, even though they're producing, quite a few plants a year, onto the consumer, because there's just so much going on in the back end. So, with all of this being said, I hope you can understand a few more of the factors that go into pricing carnivorous plants. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Please leave any suggestions for future rant videos or any questions in the comments. If you want to talk plants, join the Carnivorous Plant Discord. Link is in the description. And there's a link to my nursery if you want to buy plants from me directly. Thank you so much for watching, and happy growing.